We have never been living in more worrying times, and if you don't yet have backup power in place, you will regret it later. The Delta 2 is Ecoflow's latest portable, medium capacity, expandable, smart battery backup. And there are three main features, I think, that make it stand out in a crowded market. I'm James Bruce, you're watching MUO Reviews. Let's do this. So, three reasons the Delta 2 is different and unique. Firstly, the high output capability of the AC inverter. Despite being only 1,000 watt-hours total capacity, it's capable of ramping up for appliances rated up to 2,400 watts, or even in standard mode, it's 1,800 watts continuous and 2,700 watts surge, which means you can blaze through that 1,000 watt-hours capacity in under half an hour if you really need to. Secondly, it uses LFP battery technology, which is rated to 3,000 cycles, well above the industry average, meaning it's going to last for longer. And lastly, it has a very comprehensive smart app that just works. And that's pretty rare in the world of electronics in general, never mind with big backup batteries. The Delta 2 will be available soon, and it costs £1,099 or euros and $999, which works out at just under $1 per watt hour of storage. In addition, you can expand the capacity with either a basic extra battery of another 1,024 watt hours or a Delta Max extra battery of 2,016 watt hours, bringing you a total of 2 or 3 kilowatt hours storage. And the price will then be even lower because the extra batteries are cheaper. They don't contain any of the complex inverter electronics. So measuring 400 by 211 by 281 millimeters or 15.7 by 8.3 by 11.1 inches, the Delta 2 weighs scant 12 kilograms or 27 pounds. It doesn't have any wheels, it doesn't need any. 12 kilos should be easy enough for anyone to carry one-handed, and there are two handles on the front and back, so it's easy to carry. Around the front is the familiar and clear, easy-to-read display panel showing input, total output, battery remaining, and estimated charge or discharge time. It's all fairly simple there and easy to understand. So let's talk about the output capabilities. Underneath that display, you'll find plenty of USB ports, 2 standard USB-A, 2 fast charge USB-A, and 2 100 watt PD USB-C. Around the back, you'll find AC ports. These will vary by country, but the UK model has 4 and I believe the US model has 6. Further, you'll also find a car port and cigarette lighter, plus 2 standard DC 5521 ports. The AC ports and DC ports on the rear both have their own button, their own on-off switch, as does the USB ports on the front. If you're not using the AC ports, you should turn them off, otherwise the inverter circuit will stay powered and you'll be trickling away a little bit of charge. So what can you power with the Delta 2? Basically anything. Despite its mid-range capacity, the inverter inside the Delta 2 is capable of a standard continuous 1,800 watts total output with 2,700 watts surge, and that's more than enough for most household appliances. To demonstrate this, I used a electronic hot plate to cook a nice bacon and egg bap in the garden, and that worked great. That's pretty much the highest power I think that you're going to get from a lot of things. If you do need to power something that's rated even higher than 1,800 watts, then you can enable the X Boost mode using the app, and this will allow anything normally rated up to 2,400 watts. Now, mistakenly, I tried this with my kettle, which is actually rated at 3,000 kilowatts. I thought it was only 2.4 kilowatts for some reason, but in the process of doing so and after a back and forth with support, I discovered how X Boost mode actually works, which is quite interesting. Basically, my kettle was running for 30 seconds or so, and the power indicated it was drawing around 2,000 watts. And after that 30 seconds, it cut off. And that seemed odd because, in theory, anything up to 2,400 watts should be possible, right? But it didn't seem to be. So naturally, I reached out to support. And at this point, I discovered that the kettle is actually not rated to 2,400. It's 3,000 watts. So it's not going to work anyway. But still, why does it report 2,000 watts then? And it turns out that X Boost mode works rather than pushing the output up to 2,400 watts, it actually allows those higher rated appliances to run by lowering their voltage and upping the current. Now the total output the total power that's possible remains the same. It's still only possible to run up to 1800 watts of actual power output, but trick those higher powered appliances into running anyway, just at a lower voltage. So actually my kettle was boiling a little bit slower because it was running at a lower voltage, and it was in fact limited to 2000 watts, which is what the Delta 2 was reporting. However, 2000 watts was still overloading the system, and so after 30 seconds it cut out with an overload error. Now when I did this without X boost mode, it was drawing the full 3000 watts at the full 220 volts, which just overloaded immediately. So I just thought I'd add that little bit in here because I wasn't aware of how X boost mode actually worked, and I thought you might find that interesting too. The upshot is that you can run appliances up to 2400 watts rated. On 1800 watts of power, they'll just be slightly slower or less powerful. So moving on. For devices with a constant continuous draw, the time left indicator should reliably tell you how long the battery will last. But of course, if you want to work that out ahead of time, if you're considering purchasing this, then you can do some basic math. Work off 1000 watt hours, which is the capacity of this battery. If you plug in a 1000 watt appliance or 1 kilowatts, that'll last for 1000 watt hours divided by 1000 watts, or in other words, 1 hour. If you plug in a 100 watt appliance, it'll last 1000 divided by 100, which is 10 hours. So just divide the capacity 1000 watt hours by the power consumption in watts to get a rough estimate of how many hours it'll last. If it's not long enough, also consider that there are additional batteries available which bring this up to either 2000 watt hours or 3000 watt hours total, depending on which one you buy. Though at that point you may prefer just a larger, more all-in-one unit like the Delta Pro, which has 3.6 kilowatt hours of storage in the single battery. So on to charging. First up, solar. For a battery of this size, 500 watts maximum with an MPPT charger is ample, and that's for panels rated 11 to 60 volts, 15 amps maximum. Realistically, that means it'll take you 3 to 4 hours to charge with a 400 watt panel, assuming decent conditions, or more likely all day in less than ideal scattered, cloudy conditions. Solar panels never actually run at their rated output anyway, and you do lose some in any conversion process. However, I will add that while a carport to XT60 charging cable is included, a similar MC4 to XT60 is not included, so you'll have to source one for yourself if you want to use it with solar panels. I had a few lying around that I can use for testing anyway, but if not, put that on your shopping list. On the other hand, if you need to charge quickly, the AC charging is the way to go. So if you have a grid connected system or ample solar in an off-grid inverter setup, you can charge up to 1200 watts speed. And that's configurable using the app. So if you know you only have 600 watts to spare once you account for the base load of your house, then you can do that too and end up not drawing any from the grid. But basically, if you need to refuel fast, you can. Now that uses a thick standard IEC cable. There's no external brick needed. It's all internal in the battery. But this cable is included and shouldn't be mixed up with regular lower rated, say, computer power cables. So if you charge at the maximum 1200 watts, you'll have this full in 80 minutes. And if you're wondering why it's not under an hour, if you do the theoretical math of 1000 watt hours divided by 1200 in, then that's due to inefficiencies in conversion and the fact that it can't do the full rate charge all the time. It needs to slow down at the end. However, you should get to 80% capacity within 50 minutes, and then it's that last 20% of the capacity that takes another 30 minutes to fill up. So speaking of the battery tech, the Delta 2 uses LFP, or lithium iron phosphate, LiFePO4, and is rated to 3000 cycles at 80% plus capacity, meaning you'll be able to fully cycle the battery once a day for about 8 years. And only then will it have degraded to 80% of its original capacity. Not that it breaks down after 3000 cycles, merely that the capacity is degraded. It'll still work. Or it should, anyway, assuming it hasn't broken. Now, this is much better than lithium ion or Li-ion, which is typically what you'll find in, say, smartphones, and that degrades after only a few hundred cycles. Lithium iron phosphate is also generally considered to be safer. It won't overheat and explode, which is always nice. So I mentioned there's an app. The Ecoflow app is not required to use the basic features of the Delta 2, not at all, but you'd be missing out on advanced configurations and other options like being able to remotely monitor the status of the battery. It's also one of the most reliable battery apps I've used yet, so it's well worth downloading. Since I've already got the app installed and logged into my account, setup was a breeze. The app automatically detected a new Ecoflow device over Bluetooth and then prompted me to add it. From there, you should connect it to Wi-Fi as well for remote access. Now, the initial connection can only work on 2.4 GHz network, so if, like me, you have a dual band router with the same network name for both networks, try counterintuitively moving away from the router. The 2.4 GHz network penetrates further than 5 GHz signal does. So at a certain distance, 5 GHz will no longer be available and only your 2.4 GHz will be. You can then move the battery back anywhere within range and it should connect fine in future. So the app view for the Delta 2 is a little bit simplistic. You don't get a port by port breakdown like you do with the Delta Pro. So you do get a view in aggregate of what the AC and the DC and the USB A and C are using. However, it's not as comprehensive as for the Delta Pro, where you get to see what every individual port is using. Now, it's also from here where you can adjust the AC charging speed from 200 to 1200 watts. You can change the car input. You can enable or disable the X boost. And you can also set the charge and discharge level. So I have mine saved at a safe 10 to 90% to prolong the battery life. Now, it's possible that in time the Delta 2 app view will be brought in line with the Delta Pro, where you get more details on every port usage, but who knows. Still, it is a reliable app and it works remotely, so if you have something critical, you can see at a glance if everything is okay and say that medical device is still drawing down the amount of power that it should be. The only thing missing for me personally is IFTTT or other automation support. It would be nice to have certain automation abilities for if, say, the battery runs out or gets to 20%, or even just a notification to say, hey, I'm full now, but unplug me and bring me indoors. So is the Ecoflow Delta 2 for you? The Delta 2 is a travel battery. It is very much portable and obviously not a whole house system or anywhere near that, though it might be enough for a small camper van or off-grid cabin with very low usage requirements. At $1 per watt hour or less if you're buying the additional expansion units, the price is absolutely reasonable and in line with competitors. However, the Delta 2 offers a superior app experience, overall better reliability, and a long 3000 cycle lifetime. By comparison, the Jackery Explorer 1000 Pro, for instance, costs just as much but only has a rated lifetime of around 1000 cycles due to the use of lithium-ion battery cells. So overall, the Ecoflow is, I think, the better buy. And that's ignoring other things like the higher power output capability and the app. The Delta 2 can be expanded up to 3 kilowatt hours if you need to, and that might be more convenient for you than, say, going out and just buying a massive 3.6 kilowatt hour battery like the Delta Pro. While I love the Delta Pro, it is enormous and very heavy, which means we don't take it out and about ever. Whereas the Delta 2 is perfectly reasonable to throw in the car boot and take on road trips. As a truly portable device, the maximum solar input of 500 watts is more than enough. You're not going to be lugging around multiple 400 watt panels, which is about the biggest sized portable solar panel you can buy at the moment, which will work with this. So what's my verdict? If you want something truly portable and 1 kilowatt hour of storage is enough for your needs, then this is the best option on the market right now. And I say that with plenty of experience of batteries. But while it is an incredible battery, I feel like they could have leaned more into the portability factor. With a large built-in camping light, maybe wireless charging on the top. As it is, you'll still need to take your charging cables and a separate torch light. Perhaps you'd prefer a battery to just be the best battery it can be, though, without the added bells and whistles, and in which case this is a great choice. However, if you want a backup battery for use at home, perhaps not your entire home, but just for emergencies, you're not going to be moving it around long distances, just room to room, but not beyond that. If you want more solar input than 500 watts, and if you need closer to 3 kilowatt hours or more of storage, then instead I would recommend the Delta Pro, rather than, say, buying a Delta 2 plus a max battery. While the capacity and cost are roughly equivalent, You will appreciate the higher solar input in situations where you can't rely on the grid. It's critical to be able to take advantage of the sun when you have it, especially if you live in a country like mine where you might get less than an hour of decent sunlight on average each day. Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you to Ecoflow for sending this over to check out, and thank you for watching. Remember to hit like if this video helped you, and if not, then let me know in the comments what else you'd like to see in the future. What is it that you're looking for in a battery backup review that I didn't cover? Please consider subscribing for the latest reviews and gadget giveaways from all of us at makeUseof.com. I'll see you next time.